I think this is genuinely a very, it's both an interesting question, yet an importantly crucial one. That what should be one of the, or at least an area, not a point, but a key area upon which modern, I'm using the term modern to mean younger kind of imams, younger generation of imams within the English-speaking world, within the UK predominantly, and maybe other Europe or the US, but what area should they really kind of zone in on and focus, or they should develop, that is so needed, especially to kind of cater for the younger generation of Muslims. Now, you see, because there's so much, I've got to kind of, like, when I think about things like this, there's so much clutter in my mind. And it's sometimes difficult kind of just quietening everything down to kind of like focus on the need. But I would feel that it comes down to this area of relevance. Okay, and I think this in relevance in a very broad sense. And this means, like, how is the religion relevant to us today? How is it, like, if let's say I'm half my age, now let's give him my age away, but if I'm a young person in the UK growing up now around technology, so whether they're the millennials or even, what do they call them, I think Generation Z, but these young people, very young people, and maybe even people in their 20s or whatever, and they've grown up around technology, these kind of people, they're more distant from certain cultural practices and understandings than the generation before them, than people like me, even though we were British born as well. But the younger people would be more distant and more removed from certain cultural influences than us. Now, to them, why is religion relevant? Like, on a genuine note, why is it relevant? Like, what does religion have to offer me? Now, when you think about that, it appears at first like a very simple question. But the more you ponder over it, you realize that you're kind of dumbfounded for an answer. Like, what does religion have to offer? Because the truth is that, you see, there's no point saying things like, oh, in the afterlife and in the afterlife, because we're not in the afterlife and nobody's seen the afterlife. So, and especially from these people's perspective, so what does it have to offer? And you could say, well, what does it offer? Like, rules, laws which are irrelevant, which to most people appear today out of sync. They appear to many people outdated. They appear to many people unethical. Like, if you're going to say Islam doesn't have ethics to offer, it doesn't have, and people say, of course, it has a greater ethics, but look, emotions aside, let's just be real with the younger people. You can't say Islam has ethics to offer, because it doesn't. If we're not going to be emotional and we're just going to be very genuine, you see, people, if we're going to be honest, people growing up in this part of the world, like, let's say England, your common English person and people growing up here, they unquestionably have far greater ethics than your common Muslim. Even the Muslims growing up here. I mean, I'm stereotyping, and I hate to do so, but the truth is that we ourselves see ourselves as corrupt, and we don't see the common kind of non-Muslim as corrupt as us. And they've done it without religion, and they've done it without God. So this becomes a very a shocking kind of profound moment to kind of reflect that, look, these people. So when you say, well, because people would say, well, what ethics does Islam have to offer? Well, because they are going to ask these questions, and don't think that they. Have been so many times asked these questions. That what does it? And if you say, well, of course, Islam offers the absolute right and wrong. Well, people say, well, what? Plucking your eyebrows is an unethical act, or not growing a beard is an act of immorality. Or do you see what I mean? Like these words, ethics, morals, no longer bear relevance to those kind of rulings that people will like to present under this kind of stuff. So it becomes interesting, and saying things like promoting a Sharia, which none of the scholars believe is applicable today in that understanding, that they promote, like stuff like saying things like, oh, cutting off hands and stoning people to death and all these kind of, which are just seen as medieval practices. So I'm just saying this as people are perceiving it. Now, obviously, some scholars would argue differently. I understand that, like in the past, and I actually liked the way Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, saw things, because he saw ethics as actually something which is developed and understood by humans. It's not the divine commandment theory. It's not X is only good because God commanded it. But we know what is good. And this was referred to as the old tahsin wa taqbih, al-aqliyan debate. And I actually liked Imam Abu Hanifa's understanding of this. But today we've drifted so far from this. And I accept that many ulama will, I mean not many, but certain ulama, and amongst them, I'd include myself, would argue that there is a trajectory hermeneutics and ethics, a trajectory ethics, where ethics does develop with the day and age, and that becomes, so whatever is seen in the day and age is accepted and embraced by Islam with certain parameters. But I mean, that's not the majority understanding that people would have. So my point is, how is Islam relevant? What does it have to offer me? And this is a very difficult question, because we start to realize, well, it doesn't seem to have much to offer then. And when we look at the actual hadith, right, so when the hadith that the Prophet sent the companion to the king, and asked him tell him that, that we've come with this message, and he said that we have been sent لنخرج العباد من عبادة رب العباد إلى من عبادة العباد إلى عبادة رب العباد. So we've been sent to take people away from this worship of people to the worship of the Lord. ومن ضيق الدنيا إلى سعة الدنيا والآخرة. Right. Now the thing is that the interesting thing is وَمِن ضِيقِ الدُّنْيَا, and taking them out of the closeness, claustrophobic nature of this dunya to the vastness of this dunya and the akhirah. But the vastness of the akhirah in this dunya. Because when Islam came, it came to eradicate superstitions, it came to eradicate oppression, it came to bring structure and laws and morality and ethics, but over time, people have caught up. This is the issue. And today, ironically, religion, with a capital R, has become those very things itself. Like religion has become superstition. It's become a sense of immorality itself for people. It's become a sense of all just cultural kind of folklore, demons and demonic possessions and black magic and all these fearing this and fearing that and fearing curses and, I'm going to be cursed, and living in guilt, I'm going to be punished in the afterlife. And so if you can see that, what does this have to, like when you compare that life to the life of, let's say, an atheist, his life is just, it just has to make sense to him or her. There's none of this guilt, there's none of this fearing demons or fearing kind of magic and curses and this kind of wizardry. And so if you start to, what I'm trying to say is, to a person, yes, the younger people have some connection with Islam because they're born Muslim. They have questions, but the ulama are not prepared to tackle their questions. The only way they're prepared to engage them is by telling them off. So just say, yes, it is this way because it just is. Well, how long will that answer last? Because the younger generation now, I mean the millennials, but even more so, I would think with this, what they're calling the Generation Z, or like these people, I think will more and more openly renounce the faith, and they will even mock it. So we have to start to come up with answers. We have to answer their questions. I think to engage them, number one, is most important. We have to return to reason. Why I keep overemphasizing this is because we are in an environment of reason. We are in an age of reason. Everybody who is criticizing religion will criticize it based on the ground that it clashes with reason. Islam prides itself on being the voice of reason, or it used to, but today we have scholars saying things like, who says that Islam is supposed to make sense? So what exactly are you saying? That believe in something that doesn't make sense? Is that what you're saying? Like, not you, but this is the kind of universal view. So what exactly? I read this the other day. It's people saying that these murtads, these apostates, have this kind of disease in their heart, and I read from a very prominent scholar. I was kind of upset to read it. A very prominent scholar writing about how ridda is just like basically it's a kind of bigotry and an arrogance, that the rationality of the people, that because their rationality can't comprehend this is some kind of like arrogance, that they ought to submit with. What does that mean? Like, would you submit to something if it didn't make sense to you? Like if I came to you and said, just accept this. No, don't just accept it. No, no, I know it doesn't make any sense. Like if I said to you, right, you have to come to this place with me. You can't contact any of your family members, and you can't, and they're all of your family are in a different place right now, and they just, I don't know, I gave some scenario. And he said, look, wait, this doesn't make any sense, because first of all, half my family don't even live in this country. How can they all just be here? And I don't know, if you're trying to make sense of something. And I said, no, you can't make sense of it, but don't be arrogant, just submit to what I'm saying. Like, you would never follow somebody unless it made sense to you. And the Quran itself commands people that they make sense. Allah says, Siru fanzuru kayfa bada al-khalq. That how did Allah begin creation? How did He do this? How did He, look for yourselves. Why does He call us to do this? Why does He call us to ponder? Why does He call us to reflect? So I think today relevance is so important, that people want to know, how is religion relevant? So how is it relevant to the questions that they have? How is it relevant in providing a solution to them? How is it relevant to their day and age? Because I definitely agree that the human being has an undeniable and unquenchable thirst for God. And that's my kind of belief. People may disagree with that, but I do believe that. And I believe that the distance and the gap that has been created between God and creation has been really down to religion, institutionalized religion as a whole, and the clergy, but not because of God Himself. So you'll see that in times of distress, people turn to God and not the church. So people do turn to prayer, but not to necessarily the priest. So this is my point in saying that, how is it relevant? How is it relevant to me? How can it help me? How can I make sense of it? How can it enhance my life? Because one of the things we need to focus on is that Islam ought to be complementary to our lives and not an impediment. As the Prophet said in one of the most amazing hadiths, that yassiru wala tu'assiru, and that, make things easy, do not make things difficult. Bashiru wala tunaffiru, that give people glad tidings, welcome them to this caravan of hope, and do not ever scare them away. And these are, that is one of, I seriously wish that preachers and imams and maulanas and teachers would really just, if they could just take one hadith to heart, I wish they would take that hadith to heart. Right, I hope this is of, inshallah, some help. I mean, these are some words. I wish I had an absolute solution, or maybe just a very precise response to such a question. But the truth is, just like everybody else, I too am facing all of these challenges, and I'm trying to kind of respond to them, in addition to facing then the kind of backlash challenges from the people of religion themselves, kind of opposing often my approach on things and creating further obstacles that I have to kind of go and hoops I have to kind of then jump through and get beyond to kind of deal with the real problems that your common Muslim is facing. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all these. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum.